Hey guys, I want to talk a little bit about work stress. I think this is something that's common amongst a lot of people. A lot of us out here are working jobs. A lot of us putting in many hours during the week. Whether that's personal projects or just your day or night job. Stress is one of those things that of course, it varies across industry and it varies according to the reasons or according to what you're doing. There are jobs that come with a lot more physical stress, and then there are jobs that come with a lot more mental stress. And sometimes you can have people arguing, on either side about which one is more demanding. But giving respect to each side, both are quite demanding. Now, I wanted to talk about this before, but this past week I had a experience that kind of scared me regarding my health. And I figured that now would probably be the best time to really talk about it. So along with work, I work I guess you can call it a typical work week. It can range from anywhere between 40 to 50 hours. It's usually been that around that range on average. Sometimes it can be a little bit more, with other events going on, but usually it's around that range. But so I when I come home. I've spoken before about personal projects that I'm working on. So when I come home, usually buckling down and working on those. And sometimes I can be up anywhere between midnight and 3 to 4 a.m. Now that is, I would not necessarily recommend that. And I'd say if anyone were to stay up that late, really have a reason why you would have to do that or why you would need or want to do that. So I get many nights during my weeks where I'm averaging, maybe 3 to 4 or 2 hours of sleep sometimes, and that's really dangerous to your health. So I was doing this before. I would drink an energy drink around maybe 9 or 10. I try to time it in such a way that I can get the most out of the night. So I would do that. And of course, I'd be up for quite a while. Sometimes I'd try to get in bed, and I still find myself not able to go to sleep up to that point of when I reach a certain amount of work that I can feel comfortable with. So I'm going to talk about this as far as the work environment, but factor that in as well. So these past 2 weeks, I've had this really odd feeling, which my temples they get quite numb. And I can start to feel my pulse a little bit more than normal. And at work, I get slightly headaches. Usually, it comes during a stressful period where a lot of things just all of a sudden going on at once, and a lot of issues or a lot of requests, a lot of emails, and all this sort of stuff, just all in one sort of time period. And I've noticed that this feeling that I get. It spikes during those time periods. It really spikes during the times. A lot of times, it starts to occur from the moment I walk into the office, which is, I don't know. I guess that's sort of a sign in a way. But anyway, so I get that sort of numbing feeling. Usually during stressful time periods, and it spikes throughout the day. It goes up and down. And when I get back home, it sort of goes down. It calms down a little bit, and during the weekends, it sort of goes down as well. So, I can say that work has an influence on that for me. And like I said, it's very odd. I've only gone to a clinic once to check it out, and actually the main reason why I was going just to check my blood pressure. One of my coworkers told me that maybe that sounds like high blood pressure. So I was like, okay, I'll go and check that out and see if that's the case. Found out that my blood pressure was normal. So one of the things that they actually did recommend for me was to lower the caffeine, or increase hours of sleep. So when it comes to work stress in general, I've done just a little bit of research on this, and the numbers, of course, they can be all over the place, but I found this one article that was saying that anywhere around 120,000 people, and I think this is more so related to the U.S. a year, incur sorts of disorders or physical or mental disorders that can lead to around that many deaths, per year, and that's an extreme number. When it comes to work-induced death. Um, so it's a big problem. It's a big problem, and I think we all incur stress throughout our days, and it's very important to know, or at least have methods of managing those that thing. So for me, I've written down just a couple that I usually sort of go by. And one of the main ones is that you must realize that you're only one person. No matter how many tasks you get at one time, they stress this in job descriptions that you have to be good at multitasking. And of course, there's a level of I guess multitasking that's very beneficial. But when it comes down to it, we're human and we can only do one single thing at a time. Now we can allocate our time between multiple tasks and prioritize and jump between things that way. But at any given moment, we can only do really one thing at a particular time. So this whole thing about multitasking, I think that's one of the major causes of work stress. People get this sense that they're quite overwhelmed. There's a lot on their plates. While they have 5 things going on already, people are asking for 10 more things to do, and that can really get your heart rate up. It can really stress you out. Like I said, I've had experiences with this firsthand, and I continue to. But I guess it's just one of those things that comes along with the job. And one of the things that I found in my little research is that usually it's when people have less a lower sense of control over the things that they do, their time, that sometimes those stress levels tend to increase. And that sort of goes along with one of my measures of kind of reducing stress. So usually it's I guess they're referring to when perhaps you have less control over your hours. So 1 week you can find out that you're working this. This applies, I guess, more so to shift work. 1 week you can find out that you're working days or a certain hour range, 9 to 5, 3 to whatever the 8 or 9 hours from that point will be. But so there's a lot of stress that comes from that. Uncertainty in schedules, uncertainty in how insane the day is going to be, or whether you're going to be working an extra 4 hours during one day versus another day. There's a lot of stress that comes with that, not being able to plan out your evenings or plan out your weekends. Perhaps you work during the weekends. This is my third full-time job that I've been on since I've graduated. My first job, I worked at the VA for a contracting company. A lot of calls that I was answering. It was sort of IT troubleshooting, but it was a lot of calls involved, a lot of emails, calls, and a lot of password resets. One of those things that we don't necessarily like. So it was a lot of stuff like that. But then there were other situations where you got people calling you and they were sort of pissed at you for things that you had no control over, and of course that trickles down to you and makes the environment a little bit more stressful for you. But that's not the point of this. I worked I think it was around 3 p.m. to midnight, or it was 4 p.m. to midnight, and so those were my hours, and I worked the weekends. So my schedule was more so set, but it was a little bit undesirable working the weekends. My next job, I worked at a hospital. Again, I worked weekends. I worked 12 hours Saturday and Sunday, and then 8 Monday and Tuesday, and I had 3 days off, which is 3 days off was pretty cool. But of course, once Saturday morning got here, it was kind of tough. Especially knowing that those are the days in which you get a chance to hang with more people, or enjoy time with others, and that sort of thing. So the job that I have now, my schedule is pretty set, and I say set kind of lightly. Those first 2 jobs were hourly, salaried now. So I usually, like I said, I work around 40 to 50 hours a week, which is not an extreme load. A lot of people that I know actually work a lot more than that, 60 to 70 maybe, and it gets pretty hectic. So I'm kind of thankful that I am able to kind of stay consistent with the hours that I am working now. Like I said, sometimes there's weekend work, or there's emergencies during the night or during the weekends, and there's you have to do it. So there's a little bit less stress for me when it comes down to my schedule. But the environment there, sometimes it can get a bit stressful. Sometimes it can get get very stressful. And like I said, back to the methods in which I sort of help reduce my own stress. Another one is breathing. Now this is, I guess, one of the obvious ones. You may hear this lightly amongst a lot of people. You may see it a lot amongst list of ways of relieving stress. And for me, it has worked. It has worked. Sometimes I'll have to put on my headphones and start listening to music. And I just have to remind myself, dude, just breathe. There's a lot going on right now, but you can only do one thing at a time. Now, I don't use that as a way to sort of slack back or as an excuse or anything. It's simply, it really is a way to sort of calm yourself down, because, like I said, that can really have an effect on your health. And sometimes you won't realize that in the moment, but perhaps later on in your years you'll realize that. And I know that perhaps later on in my years, this sort of thing will come back and bite me in the ass. So I'm really careful about that. I'm really careful about taking those moments to just breathe. Another thing that one of my coworkers had mentioned actually 2 days ago was that sometimes you just simply have to step away from your desk. Sometimes you have to step away and maybe go have a chat with someone. Even though you have a crap ton on your plate, sometimes you just have to take those little small breaks. And because if you don't do that, you're still going to be stressed out. There's still going to be a huge workload, and you can work yourself to death, and the work will still be there. Or you can take a couple breathers. Now maybe this depends on what sort of job you have. If you're on your feet or if you're at a desk and all that sort of stuff. Maybe it depends. Maybe you're always on your feet and you have to actually sit down for a second or something. Which of course still that depends on your environment, because sometimes maybe your boss wouldn't want to see you sitting down or whatever. But sometimes you just have to take a couple seconds to step away. If you can afford that, step away for a good 30 seconds, step away for a minute or so. I know one guy, he actually takes a little walk around the office on our floor a couple times just to to take a breather. Sometimes you need that. And another method. Now this one is, which I think is a sort of a direct correlation with how these past 2 weeks have been for me with the whole issue that I've been having, is that working out after work. Working out has really made a huge difference on my days. I've spoken about this before. I have a lot of energy when I spend time at the gym after work. It may seem counterintuitive. You may think I'm already tired. I don't have time for this. I don't have the energy for this. But once you get yourself in a routine, you'll find that you'll have the time. You'll find that you have the energy, and a lot of times you'll find that energy it's always been there. I find a lot more energy when I get home after I've worked out after work versus if I come home and I haven't worked out. Sometimes doing that will put me in a situation where I don't necessarily have to have an energy drink, and I can stay up, or I'm pretty energetic and focused, after just having worked out. So, I think that exercise is really a beneficial factor. It helps a lot. It helps me out a lot, and I'd recommend it to anyone. But I say that because of this. One of the main, as I said before, with control, the feeling of control is what induces a lot of stress amongst people. The feeling of a lack of control. So working out has more so been one of my ways of sort of exercising my control. It's easy to leave work, and it's easier to be stressed off, to be pissed off, and to carry some anger home or whatever. But I found that, like I said, with working out for me, that's my way to sort of fight back against that feeling. That's my way to say, hey, the day has been crappy, but I'm going to capitalize on it. I'm still going to get stuff done, and I'm going to start that by working out. Like I said, I work on a lot of projects when I get home. With like I said before, I can't necessarily specify one of the things I'm working on right at this exact moment, but there's a lot of time spent when I get off of work working on those sorts of things. Studying other languages, reading, and all that sort of stuff. Those are my ways of sort of fighting back against my temptation to rest, or not necessarily rest, but to be pissed or angry, or just be stressed out. Now, you'll hear it amongst a lot of people that you should leave work at the door when you walk out. And I truly believe that. You should, you should try your best to leave work behind from the moment you leave your office. Now, if you work from home, perhaps you should leave it alone from the time that you've done what you know need to do for the day. Because if you don't, you're allowing it to control you. You're allowing it to control you, and it's going to have an effect on you physically and mentally. You know, when that thing is constantly on your mind. Like, as I said before, you have to take control and step away at times, and then that happens, or that applies. You know, once you get off, that applies on your weekends. When I first started working at my current job, I used to dread Sundays. I used to dread weekends a lot of times, because I'm like, oh, this thing's gonna fly by so fast. I'm gonna be right back to work. And so a lot of times I was constantly thinking about work. I was constantly thinking about how much stuff I had on my plate, or how much I'm gonna have to go back to. And then I reached a point where as I've gotten more experience, as I've gotten more accustomed to things, and learned more, and be able to be a little bit more efficient on the job. Not only because of that, but I got to a point where I said, you know what, I have to leave this at work. I have to not let that stress me out, because, as I said before, it goes back down to the feeling of control. The more control the sense of control you have, the better you're going to be able to manage yourself outside of work. The better you're going to be able to have to manage that stress, and to not create some sort of physical or mental problem for yourself. And so like I said, working out for me has been one of those ways. I like to work out directly after work, and that helps me say, hey, I got control of this situation. I am going to keep control of this situation, and I am going to get done what I have to get done outside of work as well, despite being tired or whatever. So I guess that's the one of the main parts for me, or the main ways to manage stress for me, is to maintain that sense of control. Whatever it takes. Try to make yourself feel in control. Whatever you can do to make yourself feel in control. When you're pissed, and when you're feeling extremely stressed and you're aggravated, try to fight that feeling back. Don't be a victim of that feeling, because it can destroy you. And as some of these studies have shown, it can really make a huge impact on your life in your later years, in your older years. So of course I have a little time, I guess, before I get there. But like I said, I'm feeling symptoms now that are, I guess, a warning signs that I need to do a little bit better on these things myself. So so just use those methods. Take little breaks. Exercise your control. Sort of try to leave work behind if you can, or at least have moments or set aside periods where you're just not going to think about work, and exercise your control, because it'll really make a difference. And also on the caffeine situation. Now, of course, this varies according to the individual. I don't drink coffee, but I do drink a lot of energy drinks. So be careful with those if you can, and be careful with your hours. I guess usually I work 40 plus hours during the week, or through the week overall, including weekend days on my personal projects. And I do this in hopes that or not necessarily in hopes, but because I sort of feel that I have to. I sort of feel that is how I'm going to control my future, and really take control of my future. So I have a good reason behind it, but I also know that I have to be a little bit careful with that. So yeah. Anyways, I hope you guys have enjoyed. I want to talk a little bit more about these whole work situations and things in the future. So if you've enjoyed, stick around for more, and I'll see you next time.